Okay, so the photographer in me is very excited. This phone right here has a 50 megapixel, 35 millimeter fixed f1.7 aperture lens. This is the brand new Nubia Z70S Ultra. Let's get right into it. This video is sponsored by Nubia. All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel. I honestly don't get too excited about smartphones very often, but what I've got in my hands is something that's really quite unique, and it makes me excited, especially as a photographer. This right here is the Nubia Z70S Ultra. It was just announced a couple days ago as of filming, and when I drop this video, it will be available for purchase. But this is the photographer edition, and honestly, it's probably one of the best looking phones that I've seen so far. Of course, what excites me as a photographer though is, since this is the photographer edition, this camera system is quite impressive. What I mentioned earlier, this large bump right here, this is a 50 megapixel, 35 millimeter lens with a fixed f1.7 aperture. That is really quite amazing. We're gonna take this camera out and we're gonna test it in a beautiful location along the coastline, get lots of photos. And what's even more exciting, 8K video in 30 frames per second. Now, mobile photography isn't new to anyone, right? We've got iPhones. This is my 16 Pro Max. Camera is great. I've got a Pixel Fold, which also has a fantastic camera, but this system is different, and that's what's so exciting for me. I personally love a 35 millimeter focal length. On top of that, we've got two additional cameras in here. We have a 70 millimeter telephoto, and we've also got, they say it's a 13, I think it's an 18 millimeter actually, ultra wide, and this also has a macro mode as well. Now, before we take this on the road all weekend and test it out, I just want to quickly run through some of the specs, because this isn't really going to be a review on the hardware of the phone. I'm going to talk specifically about the photography and video experience, because this is the photographer edition. Now, quickly running through the specs of the Nubia Z70S Ultra. Processor, Snapdragon 8 Elite. I would consider that probably one of the newer flagship processors, which is fantastic. You're going to need a lot of that processing power, especially for the quality of photo and video that this thing can handle. This one comes with a number of different storage options, up to 1 terabyte of storage. Now, the screen, this is a 6.85 inch 1.5K OLED screen. No camera bump, and basically edge-to-edge screen. I think that really adds to the overall premium look and feel of this. And like I mentioned, as someone who's going to be taking photos and videos with this, having a basically unobscured view of everything that I'm seeing is going to be very cool. So we'll test that as well. The other thing that I will call out, and maybe I'll test it a bit, is the 144 hertz refresh rate. That's gonna be fantastic for those of you that love mobile gaming. I personally don't do much of it, but let's see if it has an impact on the video playback or maybe some of the content consumption that I'll be doing. But I'd say majority of you that are going to notice, it's gonna be in the gaming experience on a phone like this. And as I mentioned, with that processor and kind of the graphics power available to you in this device, you're gonna have a fantastic experience there. Probably table stakes for most smartphones in 2025, but IP68 and IP69 dust and water resistance ratings, it's gonna be fine. It'll do great at the beach. I'm not gonna be worried about dropping it in the ocean or dropping it in the sand. This thing should hold up really quite well. And one of the major improvements on the Z70S Ultra, other than the camera system, is the battery. It has a 6,600 milliamp hour battery, which is going to give you so much power. It'll definitely last you a full day or even two, depending on usage. I will definitely test and see how well this battery holds up through all the 8K video that I'm gonna try to film and all the photos that I'll be taking with the device. Operating system, I've been using Android for a while because I also have the Google Pixel Fold Pro 9, whatever. This uses Android 15 and it has a Nebula AI OS skin on top of it. It's still super snappy. It's still very clean. I think that's the big thing about any type of skin that a manufacturer adds to their phones. I still want it to be relatively clean. I am a pure Android user, so I think this thing does a great job. Everything is still really crispy. All the functionality you'd expect is still here, but of course with Nebula AI OS, especially for the Z70S Photographer Edition, they've added a lot of additional software features to the camera app, and of course we'll go through that in depth once we start testing it. Huge screen, still quite durable. Gorilla Glass 7i, all aluminum frame here, and then on the back, this is a textured, I think it's actually all glass back here, but with their process, this feels like a textured like leather. And then up here is a kind of brushed metal finish, but I think all of this is actually glass, which is pretty impressive. It feels really nice. I like some of these red accents around the lens. We've got the textured red metal sleep button here giving me Leica vibes, and I dig that. And finally, we'll quickly run through some buttons. Volume toggle switch. We've got that sleep button in this textured red. This has a dedicated shutter release button, which in my opinion actually works much better than the one on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. You can half press it, it activates the camera app, and then once it's activated, half press activates their all new auto focusing system, and a full press will of course activate the shutter. This thing works really, really nice. The experience so far has been fantastic, but we'll talk more about that later. There's another button on the side. This is more of a toggle switch. You toggle it on and off. You can customize whatever you want this button to do. Right now, it just toggles on and off the camera, but you can change that completely. And front-facing camera, like I mentioned, no camera bump. The camera is embedded below the screen. It's a 16 megapixel front-facing camera. We'll see how that performs as well. And then one final thing to call out, fingerprint reader also embedded below the screen. Cool. So let's take this out to Half Moon Bay and let's go test it along the coastline.
Got me upside down, spinning around you. Wanna taste the clouds, dance with the moon. Take a trip around your body. Boy, I love the way you got me. Starry-eyed, got me starry-eyed. Losing all my focus, I can't even control it. You know your lips are golden, baby, get me high. Touching me like lightning, keeping it exciting.
All right, had a great night's sleep. Was using the Nubia Z70S Ultra all day yesterday. What's really funny is I just picked up this phone this morning. I had not charged it all night. I still have 96% battery life. And to give you a little bit of context, it was charged up to about 100% at 3 p.m. yesterday. And since then, I've been using it to film 8K video clips. I've been taking pictures on this, and it's about 8:35 a.m. now the next day. I still have 96% battery life. I will say though, I wasn't using it to browse the internet or watch videos or do anything like that, just kind of standard, take it out, get some photos, get some video. But this 6600 milliamp hour battery is honestly pretty impressive so far. So I'm not going to charge it for the rest of the day, and we'll see how much battery life we have at the end of today and tomorrow. But let's run through the camera experience so far with the Z70S Ultra. I've mentioned it a few times, but again, the big highlight of the Photographer Edition is going to be this 35mm fixed f1.7 lens. It's a 50 megapixel sensor, which is great, and the fact that it is fixed at 1.7 versus I think the last version, the regular Nubia Z70, it had a variable aperture. This thing has performed really, really well. The quality of the images look amazing, and the fact, of course, that I can set between 4:3, 16:9, different aspect ratios is also great. The telephoto lens is a 70mm from what I've read from the spec sheet, and the ultra wide is a 13. So when it does open up the pro mode for the camera, I have 35, 18 for wide shots and 85 for my tele shots. So it's a little bit of a difference between what I'm reading on the spec sheet and what the camera app itself is offering me, but one thing that we do know that's consistent is the main camera is the 35. Between the 18 and the 85, I'll dig a little bit deeper, but they are very useful. The 18 is probably much more classic, closer to what you'll find on an iPhone, perhaps, but I think those are closer to like 20, 24. In the Pro mode, you're gonna have settings for your shutter speed, your white balance, your ISO, autofocus, exposure compensation, and then we're also gonna be able to see an additional drop-down menu where we can change up all of our aspect ratios. 4:3, 16:9, 1:1, and then full. So here you can see in the full mode, we are using the entire screen. I personally prefer to just keep this at a 16:9. We can of course add things like peak focus, histogram, grid. This is it in 16:9. You can still see we've got plenty of screen real estate, black bars on the side for your controls, and some of the controls overlap on top of the live image. I think it's perfectly fine. The other thing that I like is if I half press, maybe you can see autofocus. Really cool. Let's keep moving through some of the photo modes. So I have this on Pro. We can obviously go to a standard photo mode, and not much changes. You just lose a lot of the settings that were already available in the Pro mode, but you still have 18, 35, 85. And you still have all the settings at the top that you can drop down, change the aspect ratio, self-timer, all that good stuff. Now what's interesting though is, I'm gonna give you a close look, hopefully you can see here, is this is the new street mode. Obviously I'm assuming it's for street photography. You can set it to toggle on and off, or you can just swipe to it. I think the original quick access buttons, like the shutter button and the little toggle switch here, would open the camera app in street photography mode. And what you'll notice though is we have additional focal lengths. So of course it starts out on 35 as the main, but then we've got a 24 as a wide, 18 ultra wide. It also gives us a 50mm and an 85. Obviously these are just cropped in versions of the 3 different lenses that are available to you. I don't know if I love the street photography mode more than say like a standard Pro mode. The only thing that the street photography mode does add is if you hit the little arrow on top, you get some pre-built in looks. So old, frosted, and that's basically it. So really it's designed to be a kind of quick access street photography mode where you can snap some shots, give them a old maybe Fujifilm or Leica vibe, or give them some additional color grading and a bit of character so that you can just throw them straight onto social or whatever you want. It's a cool addition. I personally won't be using it very often. I like the Pro mode, and then I can apply all of my own editing. Another setting that's built in that I will test later, I didn't have a chance to test it yesterday. I got some great shots of the sunset on Pro mode, but there is a sunset setting in the camera app. So let's test it later tonight. It comes in a standard 35 and 50mm focal length. And then this last setting, I don't know how many of you will actually be using it. It's called Camera Family. It's just a bunch of pre-built modes like starry sky. I assume it adjusts all the settings so that you can take great photos, astrophotography, moon, light draw, which I think is probably a ultra low shutter speed so that you can do light drawing. I guess it's cool. It's basically pre-built settings to give you a desired photo or video effect. And I mean, it's a nice addition. No other phone I've worked with has this, so I actually commend them on doing that. And of course, since this is the photographer edition, it would make sense that they would add significantly more photo-centric features and functionality through software. The other thing that I will add is 8K video has been pretty incredible, especially paired with this 35mm lens. Video on my iPhone is perfectly fine, especially when I use the Blackmagic app. It looks great. You can get the Blackmagic app on this as well, but the 35mm lens makes a really big difference in just the footage that comes out of this phone. It is much more comparable to footage that comes out of my larger cameras, like the A7CR or the FX3 or the ZV-1. Quality, of course, will differ, but the look, because of the lens, is really quite nice. So I've actually just been using this as my primary mobile video camera this entire trip. I think it's picking up really nice B-roll, and I'm going to use a ton of it in my vlog that I'll be releasing, but of course I'm going to share a ton of that video footage with you as well. But the 8K video on this is awesome. Now, if you want to shoot in more than 30 frames per second, if you want to do something like 60, you can just easily change that. So we have 8K, we have 4K, 1080p, and 720p. I don't know why you would shoot in 720 or 1080 unless it's purely for social, but in 4K you can shoot in 30, 60, and 120 frames per second in 4K. That is really cool. So maybe we'll test a bunch of that later. Right now, primarily, I've just been using this in 8K, which has been great because what I'm going to be able to do is film all of this great content in 8K and then automatically punch in. If I need to do any zooming, it'll retain a lot of the quality, especially for post-production for these videos. All right, so I'm going to finish my cup of coffee and then we're going to take the kids out to explore the rest of Half Moon Bay. All right, so we are back in the studio and I want to run through, I guess, the experience so far using the Nubia Z70S Ultra over the weekend, taking tons of photos and videos with this. One thing that's actually kind of cool, it came with a case. It's helpful since this is a pretty delicate backing. It's mostly glass and these camera sensors do need some protecting. But I've got it right here. This thing has been fantastic so far. The form factor has been great. It's the quality of the photos and the video that's really been quite surprising, especially from a brand that I personally haven't used. And since this phone is so new, it was hard getting the exact specs, but I do have the spec sheet from Nubia. I've got my Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold. So let me just clarify some of the elements that I was trying to figure out during the trip. First of all, we're right, 50 megapixel, 35mm f1.7 constant main camera, which is great. The ultra wide and the telephoto, these are 50 megapixel sensors. We have 13 millimeters on the ultra wide and a 70 millimeter on the telephoto. So pretty close overall. The front facing is a 16 megapixel. As I mentioned, it's embedded under the screen itself. Overall camera performance, low light mode was actually really quite impressive. Also, the main lens has optical image stabilization. If you look close enough, you can see the lens kind of shift around to stabilize the image. Let's take a look. The 64 megapixel telephoto also has image stabilization, blue glass spin coated IR filter, that's cool, and also telephoto macro capabilities. I did test that. Overall, I mean, the camera system is just really impressive. That should go without saying. This is the photographer edition. And then the ultra wide, 50 megapixel autofocus, 13 millimeter equivalent focal length, constant f2.0 large aperture, and a 122 degree ultra wide angle. This also has a macro shooting mode as well for that ultra wide. A few of the AI photo modes that I thought worked out pretty well. First of all, AI sunset, AI motion capture, and an AI Milky Way. I mentioned it earlier, a lot of light pollution where I wasn't really able to get crazy Milky Way shots, but it just tells you low light performance on this overall is pretty solid. So those were just some of the stats I wanted to pre-confirm based on the spec sheet that Nubia sent over. This thing is so new. I think the release date is May 13th. I've had this for about a week or so. Not a lot of coverage, not a lot of information about it online. So I'm just glad I was able to confirm some of the actual specs from Nubia itself. But let's talk about performance. Honestly, this thing performed great. This might actually be my go-to photo phone from now on, just carry an additional one. And a lot of it is because of this 35mm focal length. I really, really like the performance of this lens. The 8K video is also fantastic. As you can see here, it's really easy to just get high quality video, punch in as well. So zooming from 8K to 4K is great. So you can really punch into different parts of your shot. That opens up just a lot of versatility when it comes to the camera itself. I did test the waterproofing, brought this into the pool while we were at the Ritz, and let the kids splash it, cover it in water. It performed great. Not something I was really worried about dropping into the pool either. And again, still functions perfectly fine. One of the features I didn't realize how much I enjoy is actually this dual stage shutter button. Right now I've got it set to long press and it opens up the Photos app in a pro mode. And the half press for autofocus is really nice. I think for a lot of you that are photographers out there, it's a motion that you're very comfortable with. It's something that I'm very used to. And then you press it all the way to snap the shutter. The other thing was this little quick switch button on the side. I can toggle between the camera and it'll open this up into the 8K video mode. I'm just surprised at how much I've been using 8K because it gives me a lot of versatility after the fact to really just zoom in and crop. And really in this video, I was just focused on testing out the camera, getting my photos, getting my videos, going through all the different modes and just testing it. The operating system itself is great. It works really well. The Snapdragon 8 Elite, obviously very snappy. But I will end up doing a longer video or a more comprehensive review of the entire experience. I'm going to keep using this, but for this video, it was really mostly about the camera system and how well it functioned, also going through some of the technical specs, but I like this a lot. I will definitely be using this as my main mobile photography phone. I guess it's just carrying another camera around, but because of that, it's just really, really quite nice. And before I forget, the other thing to cover, I haven't charged this in several days. We're still at about 57% battery life. It's connected to Wi-Fi. I've been using it primarily to take photos at the park and just bring it with me. Haven't been doing a lot of browsing on here, but really this battery life, the 6600 milliamp hour battery is performing really, really well. This is definitely something that you could just throw in your bag and stand by. You'll have plenty of time. But just for me taking it out to take photos, I haven't seen any real significant drainage, even doing 8K video. So we're at 57% battery life, and the last time I charged this was like Friday afternoon, and we're already 4 or 5 days into the week. All right, so that was my first impression and really initial testing of the Nubia Z70S Ultra. I'm obviously going to keep using this. We'll probably do a longer term video in the near future, but so far, right out of the box, incredible screen, beautiful cameras. This 35mm is my favorite. I think the quality and the look of the images coming straight out of this phone, already a huge difference between an iPhone or say like your standard Android phone, which is using a more classic mobile focal length. 35mm is my favorite for any type of shooting that I'm doing, and the fact that that is the main 50 megapixel camera, constant f1.7 aperture, great low light, really nice character and image quality right out of the box. All right, if you guys like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more just like this. I'll leave links in the description. As I mentioned, this goes live on May 13th. Depending on when you watch this video, it may be out. It may not have come out yet, but keep an eye on it. For, I think, under $800. This is a pretty sweet deal. All right, I will catch y'all in the next one.